This afternoon, I've been terribly distracted in a discussion with one of my best friends talking about politics and a lot of the issues that are really prominent today. Through the discussion, I realized that something useful had come out of it for me. I find myself really feeling frustrated with a lot of the media, a lot of the leftist messaging that's out there. Thing of it is, though, is that I find myself sympathizing more with what a lot of the right wing has to say and what's going on. And it's strange, right? I'm trying to understand where this is coming from and why, I feel that my political spectrum has shifted and why I think a lot of people's political spectrum has shifted. I feel like we are living in the aftermath of a pornographic society. Internet pornography and the hypersexualization of our media, as well as the constant romantic boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl and finds lasting happiness trope. It is so oversaturated our culture and our society with these sexual paradigms that in some sense, what we're witnessing is people aligning, or rather defining, their whole identity based on what they do with their genitals. I think about it and I'm like, what's the deal? I don't hate gay people. I've never hated gay people. It's never been, but that's the thing is I don't really care. It's never really been something that I'm, super uppity about. It's, whatever you want to do, live and let live. Live your life. But that's the thing is it's like, you are more than your sexual orientation. Your identity is more than your gender. This is what's just not clicking for me is that we live in a culture today that is so bereft of ideology in the sense of traditional values, good values, what it means to be a genuine hero for your community and to, belong to a group, to belong to a community with a set shared of this collection of beliefs and values, right? This is so important for the human being, is to know where you belong, to know what you believe in, to know what you stand for. But all of these young people who especially live in the cities, they don't have any sense of moral direction. They don't have any sense of values beyond, I want to be able to do whatever I want with my genitals. I want to be able to get as fat as I want. I want to be able to just walk around with, hairy legs and hairy armpits. And, it's like all of this disillusion of discipline or any sense of pride or dignity, right? We know that these things are not good for the individual or for society. Some of it is superfluous and doesn't matter, but a lot of it is, obesity and heart disease are genuine evils. They're bad for you. People get sick and die. It's objectively bad, right? We know that. And yet there seems to be this initiative on the part of young people as well as this whole aspect of society where it's your appetites define you. That's really actually the best way to put it. Your appetites define you. It's there is no human sense of I'm in control of my appetites. I'm going to suppress them or I'm going to rise above, my basal instincts. It's you look at all the great heroes of history, they have to overcome fear, desire. This is archetypal, to look at the hero, to look at the heroic figure who overcomes the lower aspects of their nature, rises above the animal nature into something ethereal, spiritual, transcendent, right? Every great myth, every great cultural story glorifies the hero, the warrior, the person who overcomes those things that are limiting about the individual. And yet we live in a culture today that seems to be working to undermine all of that and to label it toxic masculinity and to glorify obesity, debauchery, lasciviousness, these things where it's you just give yourself over to dissipation. And there's nothing to glorify about it. There's nothing to applaud about it. There's nothing to look up to. It's basically you just succumb to your lowest possible nature. You blame everyone else for your problems and you don't take responsibility for anything. It's the worst possible human being, that we're trying to set up as an example. I think about, that speech by Rocky Balboa. It's set the paradigm for my life. I literally have to I go through the speech in my head, because when I listen to it, I'm like, man, this is such good advice. If you guys aren't familiar with that film, I mean, it's not that great of a film, but it's okay. But there's one particular scene in there where Rocky is talking to his son, and the words he gives are so important for establishing firm values and a strong sense of identity and direction in life. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you're hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, you got to go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not start pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or nobody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. It's the message that you can't go through your life constantly blaming other people because you're unhappy. But we see that so much today. We see it all the time. I'm so unhappy because of this and this and this and these people. And no one seems to want to take responsibility for themselves, take responsibility for their city, for their lives. Everyone is just consumed with their desires, their selfish appetites. We don't want to glorify heroes. We don't want to glorify warriors. We don't want to have any sense of patriotism or pride. I mean, it's a descent into barbarism. It's a descent into societal dissolution. And I think that that's what, the right wing is talking about when they say, make America great again. Let's set up some heroes, real American heroes, real people who fought with courage and dignity and a sense of who they are. Because we know, historically speaking, that, this kind of behavior, this kind of undisciplined, self-centered, irresponsible attitude can end only in poverty, chaos, and death. I mean, it can't possibly serve as the foundation for a strong and progressive society. It can only descend into chaos and infighting. And I think that's what we see, right? We see all these people going into little tribes based on their sexual orientation, based on race. Everybody's consolidated themselves into these little groups, and they're pointing fingers saying, I'm not happy because of those people over there. You can't possibly build a functioning, diverse society off of that. It's only going to end in infighting and chaos. And we need strong leadership to stand up and say enough is enough. We need some fathering, like real fathering. And I really think that's a big part of all of this, that, these young men and young women are growing up with no fathers, no discipline, no sense of who am I and what do I believe in and what do I stand for? There are no dads, right? That's where the fathering really comes in. And the belittling of the male within society, through advertising and media and all of these things, the glorification of women and, the elevation of women within our culture. It's I think in a big way led to a lot of these dads who just don't show any interest in their family. They're not there to raise their kids. They're not there to supply discipline. There's no sense of direction. And I think that's why. And I think I find myself aligning with that because I know I've had a tough life. And I can tell you sure as hell, being a self-centered little dweeb, blaming everyone, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be dead, But I just think about it, these spineless twerps who point fingers and have no sense of initiative, no sense of discipline, who just want everyone to give them what they want to make them happy. They're not going to succeed in life. You cannot succeed in this life without discipline, without a strong sense of identity. And I really think that you draw a lot of that from traditional values, from traditional structures within society, from Christianity and even within Islam and Judaism and within, all of these traditional religious communities really prioritize the importance of self-discipline and discerning between right and wrong. And this really is what constructs a dignified individual. The dissolution of the individual into their appetites, identifying solely with what they want to consume and eat and have sex with, is a complete and total basal element of the human nature. It only leads to an animal-like behavior. And oddly enough, we see today, some of these, LGBTQ people literally identifying as animals. They're, they're literally saying that they're wolves and they're cats. And yeah, it's the descent of consciousness into chaos. I mean, it can't possibly go any other way. Yeah, it can't end well. It won't end well. And I think that's why a lot of this is happening. And I think, having that insight and having that understanding, hopefully can allow us to sort of step back look at this objectively and recognize the importance of really taking seriously questions about God, questions about our place in this world, questions about what's right, what's wrong. We need to take the Bible seriously. We need to take Christianity seriously. We need to really look at these questions seriously. And that's why I find myself pushing further to the right. Absolutely. I used to really kind of sit in the middle, because I had a tremendous appreciation for the traditional values of the church and that end of things. But I also saw that a lot of liberals in the early 2000s talked about the importance of science and equal rights of citizens, and, how everyone has to have their interests protected. And I stood for that too. I'm like, this is a self-evident good. But we don't see that anymore coming a lot from the left. It's becoming a lot more about, I am what I like to have sex with. That's it's like, I have no sense of identity beyond that. I saw the other day some website, sexual orientations have flags, like, as if it's a country or something, like you're patriotic now of what you like to do with your genitals. It's like, you mean to tell me that if you just ignore your head and your heart, you could just basically find out everything you wanted to know about this person from their genitals, from the waist down? It's like, wow. This is good. Wow, this is going places. Let me tell you, straight to hell in a handbasket. That's where it's going. It can't possibly go anywhere else. It's not heading to utopia. I can promise you that. Because success, prosperity, and well-being come from taking responsibility for yourself, your community, and ultimately knowing what's right and what's wrong and striving towards the ideal. So I really hope that, maybe this message finds its way into the hearts and minds of some young people out there, not into their genitals, and motivates you to really look seriously at some of these traditional values and to understand that, yeah, you know what, there's a lot of disagreement out there on religion. There's a lot of disagreement about all these things. But at the end of the day, these traditional societies agree on way more than they disagree on. And I think that is so important to get that message out, which is why I do what I do. We really have to recognize that these religions agree way more than they disagree. And that can still serve as a solid foundation for our values, for our ethics, and for a sense of what's right and wrong, and for ultimately finding a purpose-filled and meaningful life. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.